Welcome to Anything But 925, I'm Kevin Crowley, and in this episode we're going to speak to children's author Chris Duke, find out his story and how he came up with the idea of Lucy's Blue Day. Take it away. I have author, wrestler. Chris, what other kind of things do you have?
Oh, do you know what? If I went through my list, it would be Hero Night. Radio DJ, put that in there as well. Why not?
Radio DJ, there we go. Chris has had so many careers that I thought, do you know what, I'll let him go into as much detail as possible about it. So, Chris, obviously, we're here to kind of discuss you and how you handle let's just say a lifestyle that's not 9 to 5.
It's probably true. Yeah, not maybe 12 to 12. Maybe better. Yeah.
That sounds quite intense. You know. So can you do me a favour? We've touched upon the fact that you have had quite a few kind of careers in your time.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to kind of run us through your CV very quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you and I we'll start right. You and I go back. Oh, and this makes us feel like proper old, right? You're talking like 20 years, maybe 22, 23 years when you and I first met. But back then, as soon as I left school, I was straight into the catering industry, and left there to go and study musical theatre. Gave that up, and went back into catering, and then I decided that I wanted to pursue my dream of being a radio presenter. I always wanted to be a radio presenter. So I started volunteering, decided to try and get into it professionally, had a little bit of a stint, a couple of years, as a breakfast radio presenter. I did wrestle. I wouldn't call it a career. I had one match.
It's one match more than most people.
That's true. I had one match, and in that match, I managed to lose 3 teeth. In that match, after that, I went back into, I believe it or not, a normal 9-to-5 job where I was renting houses to people, not my own houses. I worked for an estate agent and renting other people's houses to them, and then I decided to write my little girl a poem one night, and that poem spiraled completely out of control, and now my full-time job is I'm an author. I'm a children's author. Mm-hmm. How on earth that happened, I don't know, but that's where we are now.
That is it's quite funny how you kind of how people stumble into these things almost.
Yeah.
But you've ever since I've known Chris, just for anybody listening, he's always had a creative kind of streak in him. He's always had almost a desire to entertain. I think was probably one of the things my only memories of you was that you would always kind of. I always remember we used to kind of hang about at lunchtimes in the music club, which makes us
music department, yes,
which made us the real cool kids, isn't it? Of our high school. And I always remember Christopher just being sitting at the piano, tapping away, and there was always kind of a wee crowd around him listening to kind of what he was playing next.
Do you know what that was, right? That was more of I felt accepted by that group of people, because you remember, right, our school, because when we left school, we left just before being a musician was cool.
Yeah.
Like literally, like the year before, like after we left, being a musician was cool, and that was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. But that small group of people is like, I felt like genuinely accepted by these people, and I again we talk about stumbling on something. I stumbled upon this talent that discovered that if somebody asked me to play a song, and if I knew the song in my head, I should be able to play it on the piano. And I was like, how on earth did this come about? Like, I genuinely remember sitting in 4th year, and this is a wee bit insider talk between you and I, right? Because nobody else will understand what we're talking about here. But we were sitting in Mr. Gordon's music room. You know the very first music room that you came to before you came to the music base, Mr. Gordon's music room, and I was sitting at the piano and I just looked at the keys and I was like, I know how to play this. And then when people were asking me, and it was Mr. Gordon that did this for me, like I would always ask him, "Can you play this?" And he would sit and he would start playing, and I say, "Oh no, but can you play this song?" And he would start playing it, and I'd always try and catch him. No, but seriously, can you play this one? And he would play it, and I was always so inspired by him and the fact that he could play anything off the top of his head, and I always wanted to be like him. Like Ian Gordon was, and he'll tell you this because I used to always tell him that he was the person I wanted to be. Even to the fact that when I did work experience in the music department, it's so embarrassing to say this now, but you're talking 20 years ago, right? I shaved my head, I grew a goatee, and yes, and I wore this and I don't. This is like really specific stuff that you might not even remember, but I wore a shirt with the same color tie because that's exactly what he wore. Was a shirt with the same. Like, if he wore a green shirt, he'd be wearing a green tie. If he wore a blue shirt, he'd be wearing a blue tie, and that's exactly how it's almost stalker level. You know, when you think about it now, if a kid did that today in 2019, it'd be considered stalking. But in 1999, it was all right.
Well, back in 1999, imitation was the highest form of flattery.
Yeah, now it's considered illegal.
Yeah, well, damn them laws. So, Chris.
Yes. Oh, you'll soon find out, by the way, Kevin, that I ramble a lot.
And you know what? Rambling is absolutely perfect as far as we're concerned. It gives us one of these things about this kind of show is it gives us an insight into our guests, and we will. I'm sure with the rambling, we will get quite the insight.
Hopefully.
So, one of the things we need to touch upon is you've always been a fan of wrestling, yes?
Absolutely.
How did you get into wrestling? How did you become involved in wrestling?
Oh my! Oh, you mean as a fan or as just being involved in the kind of local industry?
Well, in terms of what kind of wrestling for you, has it been something that's been quite happens quite a lot in your life and been quite an influence?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember right, it was I stayed in a wee tenement flat in Cranhill in Glasgow, and it was the boy who lived upstairs from me had Sky, because everybody's got that story, haven't they? They've always got the story where you never had Sky, but somebody you knew had Sky, and they would tape stuff for you. And if I remember right, he showed me, like, I don't know, it must have been like a Hulk Hogan tape or something like that, and I just thought this was incredible. These over the top muscly men, that sounds completely wrong, but over the top muscly men who are just larger than life people that got into this stage and pretended to hit each other. And I was wise to it even then. Like that's what it was. It was a show, and I just thought this was incredible stuff. And all these people that were just huge and over the top, and I just fell in love with it. And I got my uncle to tape, and I remember it was SummerSlam '92.
Jeez.
It was, which was from Wembley Stadium. So this is when they came over. They came over here and they did it in Wembley Stadium, and I got my uncle to tape it. And it was on, I think it was like a Sunday afternoon at like 3:00, and they were showing it live because it was in the UK, and he taped it for me. And literally the second that show was over, I was at his door, and I was like, "Can I get the tape? Can I get the tape?" And I just fell in love with it. And I have never and literally, because you know yourself, kids, it's a kids thing, right? Wrestling is considered a kids entertainment thing, but I am now 36 and I still love it.
Well, I was actually speaking to somebody about this, and I was told that this is guys' soap operas.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody will say to me, "Oh, how can you watch that? That's fake." And I'll say, so's EastEnders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or do you watch? I mean, you don't sit and watch a Star Wars film and go, "Oh, that's amazing! I wish I could go to the Death Star." Or the Death Star's not there anymore, but you know, like, but the Death Star's no real.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Vader's no real. Sorry to break that to anybody, but so it's exactly the same. It's that's you hit the nail on the head. Aye, it's a male soap opera. Do you know what? No, it's not a male soap opera anymore. Again, 1999 you could have called it a male soap opera. Nowadays we'll just call it entertainment, sports entertainment is what they
Sports
call it.
entertainment for all.
Yes, we'll call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something you've done quite a lot of, and I do believe that as a DJ you had quite the experience with wrestling. Still, yes.
Yeah. Well, when I went back to when I was talking about getting into the radio world, I had to do a lot of volunteering before I got paid for my first radio gig, and that's when you get into things like community radio and things like that. So I ended up with a show on Pulse Community Radio based out of Barhead in Glasgow, where I would go every week and I'd do a show for free, and it started off where I was just doing your typical music show. You come out with a song and I'd start talking rubbish about, I don't know, the M74 or something, and I'd go back into another song. But then I realised that I had an audience, a captive audience, where I could start using that to interview people. And I reached out to, it was TNA Wrestling at the time. I reached out to them because they were trying to break into the UK, and I thought I could use this to my advantage and start interviewing wrestlers. So I started interviewing wrestlers on what was considered local radio, and I had people like Jeff Jarrett and like Kurt Angle and stuff like that, who were like massive WWF or WWE names, but they'd moved on to this TNA thing, and all of a sudden, people started, like, the listening figures for that hour of radio that I was on this community radio station just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I thought I could put a wrestling show on here. And I could just talk about wrestling for like an hour a week, and that I ended up doing. I had a wrestling show called the One Wrestling Show on radio, on this Pulse Radio, and I managed to get a few friends involved and a few people from the local wrestling scene involved in that, and we started to get a wee bit of a name for ourselves, where we started to get some really big wrestling names on this show, and it started off with like people like Bret Hart.
Sorry, just to clarify, you started off with Bret Hart.
Yeah, well, we'll see. You see where you'll end up. Where we end up, Bret Hart is a good starting point. And then WWE started to take notice, and they started to let us interview their stars, and we had like Drew McIntyre on, and people like that. And then I started a Twitter campaign to get Eric Bischoff on the show. Now, if you don't know who Eric Bischoff is the guy who used to run WCW, who was the competition to WWE. So, we managed to get Eric Bischoff on the show, and we had a really, really good interview with Eric. Like, probably one of the best interviews that we'd ever done. And about the next day, I got an email from Eric saying that it was like I really enjoyed the interview. It was really professional. You guys had done brilliant. I am not taking personal credit for this because there was a group of us doing it, and I thought, right, I need to I need to take an opportunity here, because I know that Eric Bischoff is close friends with Hulk Hogan, like very close friends with Hulk Hogan, and I thought, right, if there's ever an opportunity, this is it. So I got on the computer and I emailed Eric back and I said, Eric, I know this is a long shot, but you know how professional that we work. You know how professional we ask our questions. We how much respect that we treated you with. Do you think Hulk would be interested in talking to us? And I had radio silence for about 2 days, and I thought, oh well, that's it. On the third day, I looked at my phone and there was an email from Eric Bischoff, and it said, Terry would love to do it. This is his phone number.
Oh man!
And I was just like, what? You're talking the 10-year-old kid in me is just going. Somebody has just given me Hulk Hogan's phone number. What the f is happening here? So I phoned him, and to describe what it's like to talk to Hulk Hogan, you can't, right? This wasn't even the interview. This was like the pre-interview, like phoning him up to ask him if like what time would be good to interview him, and I came off that phone with a type of euphoria that I genuinely cannot. I can't describe it. It's like it's amazing that one person can make you feel that good. It's unbelievable. Like you talk about, you see Hulk Hogan on the telly and you think, oh, this guy's larger than life. This is amazing. But then when he's talking, I came off the phone thinking, I just had a personal conversation with Hulk Hogan. How on earth did my life become this?
See, when you it seems to me, it seems so surreal.
Oh, and it still is. It still is. I mean, I can show you just now because Kevin and I are on Skype camera, right? I can show you this, and let me just get it right. I'll show you that, right? That right there. There we go. Right, is Hulk Hogan's phone number, and it's still in my phone. Don't screenshot that. You behave yourself. And it's still surreal to me that Hulk Hogan's phone number is sitting in my phone. But then we phoned him. We did the interview on the Sunday, and then once we'd hung up and once we'd wrapped up the show, we just, all five of us just kind of stood, and it was like, where do we go from this? Like, this is Hulk Hogan. You cannot get any bigger than Hulk Hogan in terms of wrestling interviews. And then from that point on, it was just like a dream. We just went on and we just got on with it. We did some wrestling radio, and then obviously I moved on to professional radio, if you want to call it that. And I ended up with my breakfast show up here in Dundee, and that's kind of the last time that I did radio.
That's yeah. I mean,
it's a hell of a story, isn't it?
That's one that you'll tell the grandkids. I met Hulk Hogan. You might get some blank faces unless you show them some archive footage.
Yeah. Who? Yeah, even my kids don't know who Hulk Hogan is.
That's tough to hear. I mean, full disclosure, I'm not at the old school when it was WWF was the last time I kind of properly paid attention. But hearing somebody like Hulk Hogan still kicking about and doing that stuff and that you've interviewed him that's fantastic.
Honestly, it's such an amazing feeling to know. And I think, and I may be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure, in terms of wrestling podcasting, in terms of wrestling radio, I am still the only person in the UK that's interviewed Hulk Hogan. I might be wrong, but as far as I'm aware in my head, and in terms of what I've seen out there, I'm pretty sure that I'm still the only person that's done it.
That is quite the achievement.
If it's true.
Obviously, any fact checkers out there, please, we're kind of giving the if and maybe.
Yeah.
Caveat.
I would like to say so. I'm keeping that. That's my plan.
Never ever fact check it yourself then. So, you obviously did that. You did the DJ thing and stuff like that. What I'd most like to know is, obviously, I'd like to kind of go into what you do just now, which is you are an author for a children's book, which I didn't see that one coming, to be honest with you.
Neither did I.
Obviously, could you tell us exactly how that came to be, and obviously what gave you the insight to write that book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm getting on and on about all this really cool stuff that was going on in my life, 10 years ago when I was going on in community radio and things were going well, and I managed to break into radio, and that's fine. And outwardly, everything was going great. But inwardly, my personal mental health was terrible. I we spoke off air about kind of self-sabotaging and stuff like that. I was a serial self-sabotager, right? So that radio show that I was telling you about, which was going so well, do you know the only reason why that radio show is no longer in existence is because of me.
Wow.
I ruined it. Um, I got it into my head that the other co-hosts that I had it with were all in their own wee group talking about me behind my back, and I had no proof of that.
Mm-hmm.
I had no reason to believe that, but I got it. I this depression that I had put this little voice into my head saying they're all talking about you. They're all trying to create another show behind your back, and they're going to kick you out, and they're all going to do this. And I confronted them about something that wasn't even true. I confronted them about it, and I was like, I know you guys are doing this. I know, and that was it. I ruined it. It wasn't. There's nobody else. It was me. The other parts of my life were just falling apart. I mean, when my eldest was born, and she's going to be 9 next month, I was diagnosed with postnatal depression, which you might think is rare in men. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's only rare that men talk about it, because men don't tend to talk about their feelings as much. And so that was going on. I didn't have that instant bond with my child that everybody else has. And I felt like a terrible dad for that. I was unemployed. I was grossly overweight. When I was doing the wrestling show, I think I was sitting at about 16 stone by the time I got to where when I kind of needed to kick up the arse, I was 25 stone.
Wow.
I was huge. So, as even outwardly, my life was going relatively well. Inwardly, I was spiraling completely out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, 2 years ago, my little girl, I just seen all the signs that when I was little, I was an emotional wee boy when I was little, right? And my dad would always say to me, oh, I'll just suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be fine. But again, like, taking nothing away from it, because my dad was an excellent dad, and he's an even better granddad. But that was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different time. People didn't know what they know now. So I was just told to suck it up. And when I seen all these traits in my own little girl, I thought, I don't want her to grow up to be like how I am now. Because I fully believe that if I had the help that I am giving to people now, back when I was little, I wouldn't have had these issues that I had. So I wanted to help her. So I sat, and I remember this, I sat on the edge of her bed, and I got my phone out, and I just started writing this wee poem to help her. And, if you've read Lucy's Blue Day, then you'll know that Lucy's Blue Day rhymes, because that was a poem. That's all it was. And I kind of sat on it for about 6 months, and then I showed my wife it, and she said, you need to get this illustrated and turn it into a book. And again, with no intention of releasing it or doing anything, I just wanted to turn it into one book to help my little girl. That was it. So I went out and found this illustrator, Federica, who ended up illustrating the book, who actually I was introduced to her through a mutual friend of ours. You mind Joe Murray?
Yes.
So he introduced me to her anyway, and I fell in love with her work, because you've seen the book. It's her illustrations are just incredible. And we'd come up with this deal that I was going to quietly release the book on Amazon and not really do much about it, and then we would kind of split the profits 50-50, and that was where we were going to go with that. And she, rightly so, because illustrating and artwork is her full-time job. Anytime any real paid work came in, Lucy's Blue Day would be put to the side. Fully understandable. But it was starting to take like such a long time, and I thought, right, how can we kind of move this forward? And she says, well, if you want, we can kind of look at putting a lump sum on it, and then you don't need to, we don't need to split anything, and we'll get a lump sum, and then that means, and then you can pay me for this X amount of time. I'll do the work, and then that'll be that. was like, all right, cool. So she worked to like almost $3,000, and I was like, oh
That
shit.
is that's quite an expensive,
Yeah.
but
But I managed to haggle her down to two, so that was fine. Well, it's not fine. $2,000 still a lot of money.
I was going to say,
Um, so at that point, I thought, right, I need to go public with this, and I started crowdfunding. This is back around about this time last year, actually, maybe just before this, and I started crowdfunding, and I went out I'd raised, I think I'd raised about £1,000, which was amazing.
hmm
And then, and this is where the story takes an amazing twist. So I'd raised about £1,000, and then last August, the most unbelievable thing happened, where one of my friends. Do you know this part of the story?
no,
I feel like
I've
no.
deliberately kind of avoided so
Okay,
that we can talk about it.
so I've got a friend called Leslie, right, and I've known this friend Leslie for a long, long time. So let's put the pieces together, right? So I've raised £1,000. I'm still looking for money to pay my
hmm
illustrator. What do you think, right, is the most unbelievable thing that could have happened to my pal Leslie last
She
August?
became a publisher.
I wish no, no, that's kind of believable. No, I'm talking like honestly, like try and think like, the most unbelievable thing. I'm looking for money, right? So my friend, what do you think? Something that could have happened to
She won
her?
the
Think
lottery.
it could be won the lottery. That is
Wow.
exactly what happened. Right, but she didn't just win the lottery, Kevin. She got six numbers, but she didn't just get no. She didn't just get six numbers. She got six numbers on the Euro Millions. But she didn't just get six numbers on the Euro Millions, Kevin. She was the only person in Europe that day to get six numbers on the Euro Millions, which means that she won 58 million quid.
That's insane.
It's ridiculous. Um, so about 2 weeks after she won, she texted me, and as I said, Leslie and I have been friends for a long
Hmm.
time, and she said, "I really want to help you. I've heard about your book, and I really want to help." Um, so I went round to her house, and she wrote me a check, and I've never disclosed how much the check is for, although if you want to find out, the information's out there.
hmm
It's like the press have kind of got a hold of it. Um, but what that money is paid for is I managed to self-publish the book, which means I got 10,000 copies of that book printed, for me to sell on and kind of build this brand that I've got now. Um, it paid for my little smart car
hmm
that I drive about, and it's all branded. It's got Lucy's Blue Day all over it, and it's a brilliant thing. But the most important thing is that money paid for or pays for is for me to go around schools all around the country and talk to kids about my story, about the book, and about the fact that, because we haven't even touched on what's going on inside the book. The book is about a little girl whose hair changes color with her emotions, and to explain, it's just a simple way to explain emotions and to explain that it's all right to feel anything. And I go around schools now every single day. I'm in 3 schools a day, 5 days a week, and I do this for free. Well, for free as in I don't charge the schools a fee for doing it. And I go around and I talk to kids about their feelings, and I talk to kids about how they feel and about the fact that it's okay to feel these things, and my kind of backstory as well, and showing them that no matter what you want to do when you grow up, you can do it, because I did. And I mean, you know yourself. I was a plain wee boy. I had nothing special going on about me. I was just I was a plain. I mean, as plain as you could walk past me in the street.
hmm
And now I've managed to achieve everything that I've wanted to do when I was little, because I didn't give up. And again, it's because of my friend, and because of Leslie and how generous she's been, that Lucy's Blue Day has become and I don't like to use this word, but other people have used it, become the sensation that it has done. And that's where we are just
hmm
now. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer, but yeah, that's where we are now.
No, that's perfect answer as far as I'm concerned. One of I mean, for me, one of the insights that I would have, obviously, listening to that story is that some of the best kind of things that come out there are because people see a need for them.
Yeah,
You obviously seen a need that you wanted your wee girls, or wee girl at the time, to know that it was okay to have an off day. It was okay to kind of feel a bit
Yeah.
blue. That it kind of washes over. But one of the things I think is it's so refreshing to hear is you've came up with this idea. You've got a business, obviously, that it runs from now, but you also
Mhm.
give up your time to go and show this to other kids, to go around these schools, to make a difference. And if even if you can help one of those kids in that kind of group of kids realize it's okay, I think that's a fantastic thing to do, and it's a fantastic thing, a fantastic achievement. To kind of real kind of for you to grow as a person to
If I can,
to do that.
I'll tell you one story, and this I don't tell the kids this story because this story is a bit dark. But any adult I'll tell this story to, and it's when when the book first came out, about 2 or 3 weeks after the book first came out, I got an email. It's one of the first kind of feedback emails that I got, and it was from this woman who was telling me the story about this little boy who, um, so he's 8 years old now. So last year he was 7, and last summer at 7 years old his mum died, and between his mum dying and my book coming out, he had, and this is his own words, he had tried to go to heaven
Oh,
to be with his mum,
jeez.
right? I know it's such a
Mm-hmm.
horrible thing, and I don't know how he tried to do it. I didn't want to delve that much into it, but that's the kind of that's what I was told, and they tried like so many different things to try and help him and this sort of stuff, and I got a message saying that they were one of the first people to donate to the book so they could get a copy when it came out. Um, so I'd sent them, they got one of the first copies, and they told me that since the book came out, they now read that book to him twice a day. It's now part of his treatment,
Mm-hmm.
and since he's got a copy of that book, that he's not even self harmed once since the book came out,
That's great.
and that it, it astounds me that something that came out in my head can have that kind of effect on somebody, because I'm like, listen, I'm not an expert, right? I have got zero qualifications. When we left school, I went on to uni to study music, and I dropped out after 9 months. That's it. And then I went to try and study musical theatre, and again I dropped out after a year. We're going back to this self sabotage
Mm-hmm.
thing. But I literally zero qualifications. I am not a mental health expert. I've just been through it, and I know. And it baffles me that something that I have written and that's came out in my daft wee head, that can have such a profound effect on somebody's life. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it floors me every single day. It floors me.
I mean, it's kind of obviously on the kind of subject of mental health. One of my guests is a clinical psychologist, and
Oof, yes.
we've obviously I've kind of discussed obviously stuff like that with him. Obviously
Mm-hmm.
not in a professional basis because he's not allowed to for friends.
Yeah, of
Total
course.
disclaimer there. But he used acting as a means of self therapy as well,
Okay.
which is and that is
Oh, right, right, yeah,
and
yeah,
that is
yeah.
how he got into clinical psychology. Not your usual,
Yeah.
not your usual method. I kind of think realizing that psychology might be the way for you, you know. Um, and it just made me think back to that. But one of the things, certainly, you've been through the emotional ringer when it comes to
Oh,
when it
yeah.
comes to that kind of stuff, and you've came out the other side. What was it? What was that point when you kind of thought, this is not the way I want things to be?
I can tell you the exact point, right? Again, and I keep coming back to this self sabotage thing, right? Um, I had loads of vices when I was young, not even younger. I'm talking like less than 10 years ago. I had loads of vices. I was a smoker, which again maybe not consider a huge vice, but when you're living in a family that is like living below the breadline, um, spending £5 a day, and this is you're talking £5 a day in cigarettes sounds cheap now, right? But you're spending £5 a day on cigarettes, and your family is struggling to eat
Hmm.
in a day. That is, I mean, that's selfish behaviour, right? But when you think smoking might not be considered that much of a vice, but when your family's got no money, spending £5 a day is a
Hmm.
vice. I was grossly overweight. I'd mentioned before, 25 stone, right? I didn't get fat by accident. I ate myself to 25 stone, and when you're talking, I mean, I'm talking like, funnily enough, I was telling somebody this story today. Back when I was on the radio, here's a typical menu for me, right? And when I tell you this menu, bear in mind that this is only up until lunchtime.
Okay.
Okay, so I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and this is when I was on breakfast radio. So I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would get showered and dressed or whatever, and I'd make sure that I wouldn't leave the house before 5 o'clock, because if I left the house before 5 o'clock, I couldn't get a McDonald's breakfast. Right.
Okay.
So 5 o'clock, I'd leave the house. Boom, straight to McDonald's. I'd get my McDonald's breakfast, but this wasn't just a normal McDonald's breakfast, right? I would get a bacon and egg muffin. No, not even muffin. Bacon and egg bagel meal, which meant I'd get bacon and egg bagel, hash brown, and an orange juice, because you need to be healthy. Um, I would also get a breakfast wrap, which included egg, sausage, bacon, hash brown, all wrapped up. No sauce, because again, you got to be healthy. um, and I would get 2 extra hash browns, and I would eat that on the way to the studio
Hmm.
at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so that you're looking at that. That's almost 2,000 calories. That's one person's daily intake before most people are even awake that day. But then I would get to the studio, and there was a shop next door to the studio, and I would go in there and I'd get 2 butteries. I don't know if you know what a buttery is. I didn't know what a buttery was until I got up this side of the
Hmm.
country. It's like a roll, but it's like a flat roll. So you get like a Morton soft roll,
Yes.
but it's flattened and then it's toasted a bit more, and it's you eat it whole. You don't put anything in
Hmm.
it. You just eat it. It's like a butter. So I'd get 2 of them. I'd get a £1 bag of skips. The grab
Yeah.
bag of skips,
Potato chips
and
for those in the
yep.
North America.
Oh yes, okay, yes, and 2 bottles of Coca Cola, like the 500 ml bottle of Coca Cola, and full fat. None of this Coke Zero rubbish, but full fat. And I would have that, and I would eat that while I was on air. So that's taking me up to 10 o'clock. Then as soon as I was off air, I would go round to the bakery, which was round the corner. And again, there's a backstory to this as well. I once mentioned this bakery on air one time, and as soon as I mentioned them on air, they stopped charging me for food.
Oh,
Now,
that's a double-edged sword, that one.
it is, and considering you stop charging a fat guy for food, then you are in trouble.
Hmm.
So at the end of every show, I would go round to that bakery and I would get a Coronation chicken baguette, full size baguette, with salt and a can of Iron Brew, and I would eat that on the way home, and that would take me up to lunchtime. So what I had eaten on that's just a morning
Hmm.
of what I would eat. And do you know what's so daft now, that I have told you all this and I've forgotten what your original question was.
It was more kind of just where was the kind of stage of
Oh
yeah.
yeah, so it's a self-sabotage. That's what I was talking about. So food was my other vice. That's
Hmm.
what I was going with, right? So I've got cigarettes, I've got food, and the other vice that I had was unnecessary spending. Now I'd already mentioned that my family was living below the breadline, and we had a terrible credit rate, and all this other stuff. So I would always try and find ways to get the latest stuff, but without having to pay for it
Oh.
outright. Trying to get so. I would get like the latest computer, but I would get it from. I'm not going to name any names here, but you know those pay
Oh
weekly
yes. Hmm.
shops with the stupidly high interest
Hmm.
rates. So I would go and I'd get the latest iPad or the latest laptop, and I'd do that, and I wouldn't tell my wife or anybody that I did that. I'd just be like, "Oh, look how I managed to get this," and she wouldn't question it. So one day, while I was actually working, I had a job at a warehouse at this point, and I hadn't paid for this iPad. So the people that had given me the credit for this iPad showed up at the door,
Oh.
and obviously my wife was there with, and I believe if I remember right, I had two kids at the time, and obviously this is majorly embarrassing for her, and she had had enough. She'd went to my mum's house because she had nowhere else to go, because she knew that if she'd went to her own family would have said, "No, just leave him.
Hmm.
That was it. Just leave him. That's it. He's done." So she went to my mum's house, and she'd said to my mum, "I'm thinking about leaving Chris." And my mum said, "Why? What's he done?" She explained, and my mum said to Lisa, "Well, I think you should leave him." It's my own mum saying that to my wife. Um, so she eventually came to pick me up from work that day, and she'd explained to me everything, and we got through it. But we went back to my mum and dad's house, and the moment that got it through to me was my dad. My dad never shows his emotions. He's like he's like your typical
Hmm.
man's man. He goes out. He's a welder. He's like you know what it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
typical
Yeah.
Glasgow
Absolutely.
working man, right? And he turned around to me and he said, "If you had gotten those girls taken away from me," like this is my dad saying this
Hmm.
to me. No, that's the wrong words. He said, "If I lose those girls," and referring to his granddaughters, my daughters, he said, "I will never forgive you." And it was that exact moment was the moment when I thought, "Shit, I need to get my life in order."
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't my wife nearly leaving me. It wasn't me nearly losing my kids. It was my dad saying to me that he would never forgive me
Hmm.
if that if he lost my kids, and that just floored me.
Hmm.
Um, and that was the moment that made me realize that I need to get something sorted here.
So
And that
when that happened, what did you? Was it a kind of case of it? Was it an immediate change, or did you just go right? I need to do this. I'll need to do it in stages, or how did you kind of go? How did you kind of? I mean, you must have made a
it was
phenomenal
a
change.
yeah. I mean, it was a long process, right? Because you're talking that Summer is now 6, so and Summer was not long born, so you're talking this must be 5 6 years ago that this happened, right? Um, and it wasn't an instant change because I was still technically unemployed, because even though I had that job in the warehouse, that was a cash in hand job, and we shouldn't talk about that. But
Cough, cough.
um, it was I was still technically unemployed. I had to get a job. I had to, we were lucky in the sense that we weren't paying rent because my father-in-law owned the house that we were living
Hmm.
in. Um, and obviously Lisa had to gain my trust again, and I had to work to get that. Um, it was a long process. I eventually stopped smoking, but when I stopped smoking, I gained more weight because when you stop
Hmm.
smoking, you have to replace it with something, and I replaced it with food. Um, so it was all very gradual, and I did try things, and things didn't work, and I went to my doctor, and she put me on antidepressants, and I'm still on antidepressants to this day. I genuinely think I'll probably be on antidepressants for the rest of my life, not because I'm seriously depressed or anything now. It's just It's just the way my life is now.
Stabilizer.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Aye. Um, so I got prescribed these antidepressants, and I would try, your fad diets, and I would do all that, and I'd try and lose weight. I'd lose some weight, and then I'd sabotage it by going, "Oh, I've lost a stone this month. Excellent. Let's get a Chinese." And then that Chinese would turn into 5, and that'd be that. That's the weight back on. So that would happen, and then eventually I found a guy called, and I hope you don't mind me plugging him because
No, absolutely.
he completely changed my life. His name's Tony Lawson, right? Tony Lawson is what you consider a life coach and an NLP practitioner. Now, NLP is neuro linguistic programming,
Correct,
which people who maybe don't, if you want to put a face to it, put Derren Brown as a face to it, right? Because what Derren Brown does for entertainment, people can use to help people as well. And I went to Tony's office, and I wish I could tell you what he did, but I can sort of remember what he did. But what I remember is going in and having this big cloud over me, figuratively. But when I came out, I just felt that the world was just a wee bit brighter. And it was just a brighter place. And whatever he did, and whatever he did to kind of help me, I just felt that I can do this now. I can sort it. I can sort my life out. Because now, I'm now 12.5 stone lighter than what I used to be. Right, so I lost 12.5 stone. But listen, I'm not going to start preaching weight loss and diets and things like that because I needed help. I ended up I got a gastric band to lose the weight, and by no means is a gastric band an easy option because it's not. One, it's major surgery for a start, right? Two, it's imagine going. Did you ever smoke?
No.
No, right? But maybe have you got any vices like that?
Maybe I had obviously my kind of moments of alcohol, but I was never really somebody. I wasn't committed enough to have any vices.
All right. Okay. So what about your favorite? What's your favorite food then? Right. Let's go with your favorite
well,
food.
it's got to be my wife's mince and ties.
Right. So imagine going from being able to eat all like your wife's mince and tatties for forever, like being able to eat that and being able to eat it when you want, how you want, like on command, everything like that, and then to be suddenly told you can't have that anymore.
That's
like you physically, it is impossible now for you to have that.
That'd be a tough one.
It is, and that's exactly what I had to go through. I went from being able to eat my weight in food and having those like 5,000 calories before lunchtime to mentally being told you can't have that anymore. You physically cannot eat that anymore, and that's hard. People, I had to do a lot of research in the gastric band before I got it, and I'd heard about people, being not mentally prepared for it and end up committing suicide because you've got this device inside you that's making you unable to eat the way you want to. So my point is, gastric band is not an easy option, but Tony had given me the push to go to make that decision, to say, right, I've tried everything else, this is the last option, and again it completely changed my life. Losing weight was just part of it. Getting things done. I believe now that anything is possible now, and it's because of Tony. Like he took me down that journey, and now if I want to do something, I know that I can probably do it. I just need to find the way to do it. Like I'll give you a prime example, right? When the book started taking off and it started doing well, I had one goal, and that was to get that book in front of Holly Willoughby.
Yeah.
Daft wee goal, but I wanted to get that book in front of her. So I was in my mum's house one day and I seen an advert for This Morning Live, which is the big trade event that they do in
Mm-hmm.
Birmingham. And Holly and Phil would be there, and Ruth and Eamon and all those people would be there. So then I started to do a wee bit of research and tried to work out how I could get a stall there. Because I get that, if that means that I could get my book in front of Holly Willoughby, then
Job done.
I would do it. Yeah. So I did the research. I found out how much a stall would cost. I managed to find the funds because, because I've got a friend who's got £58 million. And I managed to book a stall at This Morning Live. We went down, we spent the whole weekend there. We'd actually sold like maybe over 1,000 books while we were down there. And I think it was the Friday morning we were setting up the stall, and I noticed a wee hubbub going on over like the other side of the hall. And it was Holly had just come in, and she was walking through the hall to get to her kind of dressing room area. And I noticed that she was walking right towards or right past our stall. Like her route would take her right past our stall. And I thought, right,
Now or never.
this is it. This is exactly now or never. So I grabbed a book and I literally stood in front of her with my arms spread out and my legs spread out to stop her in her tracks. And I said, I am sorry. This is the only opportunity I'm going to get to do this. Please, here, take a copy for your kids. And she took a copy, and so I set that goal of I wanted to get Holly Willoughby. I wanted to get a copy of that book in front of Holly Willoughby. I set that goal, and I started to make little ways to make sure that I was going to make that happen. And we made it happen to get that in front of her. So I'm now a firm believer. Like when you go back to the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about how I used to think that people were talking about me behind my back, and I would sabotage it. And now my mindset in life is completely different. If somebody wants to talk about me behind my back, fine. Let it happen. I don't care, because now I know that I anybody, not even just me, anybody can achieve anything that they want to do, as long as they don't give up. I give right. I tell you what, right. This is where we'll go with this. I give the kids, when I go and do my sessions, my Lucy's Blue Day sessions, I tell them this story, and this is maybe a good way to finish it. I tell the kids this story. When I was a little boy, there was 4 things I wanted to be when I grew up, and you'll know this actually, Kevin. I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be a radio DJ. I wanted to be a wrestler, and I wanted to be an author. So, as you know, I've got 3 kids, so I can tick that off my list. I'm a dad. I've moved up here to Forfar, where I wanted to be a radio DJ. I managed to achieve that. Radio DJ. I had a wrestling match. I'm a wrestler. And I'm now a published author with Lucy's Blue Day. And there's just one tiny little thing that I did to make all those things happen, and it's I didn't give up. When my little girls were born and I got diagnosed, I got hit hard with a postnatal depression, I could have given up. I could have given up. I could have left. I could have done anything, but I didn't. I fought through it, and now I love I've got the most amazing family, and I love them so much. When I wanted to be a radio DJ, I didn't just fall into that. I phoned that radio station. I phoned them every single day for a year before they even let me through the door for a job interview. But I didn't give up. When I wanted to be a wrestler, I went on the ITV show this time next year with Davina McCall at 25 stone, and I said to Davina, this time next year I want to lose weight and I want to be a wrestler, and I did it. And I worked hard, I trained hard, I broke my wrist, I dislocated my shoulder, and I lost 3 teeth, but I still did it.
Still very pretty.
Oh, thank you. But I still managed to do it, and it's because I didn't give up. And we're writing my story. I've got hundreds of stories on my computer that I've not finished and I've given up on. But what's the name of the one story that I didn't give up on?
Lucy's Blue Day.
It's Lucy's Blue Day. I didn't give up on it, and now look where it is. And that's how I finish my sessions with the kids when I go into the schools. I promise them that no matter what they do or what they want to do when they're older, that they'll do it. as long as they don't give up. And they can come and find me in 20 years and they can say to me, Chris, you promised me that I could do this and I've not done it. And I'll say, have you given up? And it's up to them what their answer is. And that is literally how I finish my Lucy's Blue Day sessions, by telling that story.
It's a fantastic message, especially in this day and age where it is easy just to give up. It is easy not to take control of your life. It is easy to kind of just let someone else handle it, and not be the master of your own destiny. And the fact that you're combining that with it's okay to have a low day, just take control back though, and kind of get, and be, do anything you can achieve, anything you want, is a great message.
Just to add on to that, my wife, because obviously I didn't do this myself, right? And my wife had to fight with me, because she nearly left me, but she didn't, and she fought through it all with me. And she kind of came up with something that she says helped her quite a lot, and in the fact that she personified the illness of depression. So rather than saying it was me that spent all that money, or it was me that ate all that food, or if it was me that was lying in bed all day, she would say it was the depression that made me lie in bed all day. It was the depression that made me spend that money, and it was the depression that made me eat all that food, and that helped her, because rather than blaming me, she would blame the illness. And that's something that I think maybe partners should know, because it's easy enough for us as sufferers to give up, but it's also easy for partners to give up and blame the person that's suffering, where it's 9 times out of 10 it's not the person that's suffering that's doing these things. It's a external force that's making them do it. I liken it like, see when you're not well, see when you're like got the flu or got a cold or something like that. It's not you that's lying in your bed. You haven't made that choice to lie in your bed and feel sorry for yourself. It's the cold that's made you do that. It's the flu that's made you do that. It's your illness that's made you do that. Mental illness is exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate, and I consider myself very, very fortunate, because I have obviously seen people with mental health issues, and it makes me feel very, very lucky that I don't have that kind of thing, that to deal with. But hearing people like you taking control of it, and that getting that message out there, especially to kids, especially now in the kind of days, the kind of times we live in, is
start them young. That's what they say.
Yeah, is great, and hopefully kind of then gives them the kind of resilience when they grow up to know, I'm having a low day, but I can get on with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a fantastic message, and it's, I have to say, it's nice to see one of my alums doing well for themselves.
It's been a weird few years. I mean, it really has. As I say, I wake up every single day, and I'll give you one more comparison, right? See when I was at my lowest, when I was at my very, very lowest, I would wake up in the morning and I would be disappointed that I woke up. Right? So I mean that's the harsh reality of it, right? I would wake up and I think to myself, oh well, I've managed to wake up. Oh well. Like that sort of thing. Now I wake up every day, and I wake up before my alarm, and I wake up and I get up right away, and I've got something to look forward to every day, and I thank my lucky stars that I'm awake, that I've woken up that next day, because I've got a purpose now. Even though I did have a purpose back then, but I didn't believe I had a purpose. Even though I had people relying on me, I had 2 kids. I've got 3 kids now. I had 2 kids at that point. But I didn't believe that I had that purpose. Now I believe in myself and I believe in my purpose. And to go from being disappointed that you were still breathing to being just happy to open your eyes in the morning is just it's a brilliant feeling. It's such a phenomenal change in your life.
Yeah.
Right. That's my last comparison. I'm leaving it there.
Hi, there's no limits on the Anything But 95 podcast. But honestly, Chris, it's. I mean, I've probably repeated myself time and time again, but it's an inspiring message, and it's.
Thank you.
Really great to hear somebody kind of obviously going through what can be only described as the worst of times, coming out stronger, more resilient, and not only that, not only coming out of it and just being a normal guy, coming out of it and putting a book in Holly Willoughby's hand.
Oh, do you know? Oh no, I was going to make a dirty joke there, but I won't. I'll just leave it.
It's an explicit podcast, but we do have standards.
Yeah, yeah, but I'd put more than a book in Holly Willoughby's hand. Let's just say that, right?
Well, that's wonderful. To all the kids listening to that.
Yeah, right, do you know? It could be just me talking to you, Kevin, or you can leave it and it's fine. You know how on Friends, they've got that the list.
Uh-huh.
The list of 5 people out with the marriage, yada yada, right?
The whole pass.
Holly Willoughby has always been the top in my list. Like always, like since you're talking back in Fame Academy days, Holly Willoughby has always been at the top of my list. And then when I had the opportunity to meet her, she's still there, right? Because she's still as beautiful in person as she is on TV and everything. But for some reason, my wife was breaking her like cacking her breeks because I got to meet Holly Willoughby, and I'm saying to her, I was like, okay, yes, she's on this fictional list of out with the marriage, but what's going to happen? Is she going to she's just going to look at me and think, oh wait a minute, here's this author who's here's a random like Scottish guy. Oh wait a minute, oh I'm on your list. Oh brilliant, let's go round the back and sort this out. I'll leave my husband for you. Like, behave yourself. But yeah, Holly Willoughby. Yeah, there's that story.
It's a beautiful story, a timeless Disney classic. That's it's great. It's honestly great to hear. So you've obviously achieved. This is what you've achieved so far, which is excellent. It's incredible. What are your kind of goals for the future? Where does Chris Duke see himself in a few years' time?
Oh God. To be honest with you, right, I am very happy with where I am. Just see if things stayed the way they are right now for the rest of my life, I would die happy. Genuinely. That doesn't mean I don't have goals. I do. I like, for example, Lucy's Blue Day is a self-published book. I published it myself. I promoted it myself. Sold over 7,000 copies on my own. When I took that book to a publisher and I was told, no, mental health books don't sell. And I've managed to do that on my own without any help. So I've proven them wrong. So I would love maybe one day to have my own publishing company, to build on this and to have my own publishing company, to publish my own books. I do have more books coming out. I've got a kid's novel which I'm writing, which is due out at Christmas time, about a wee boy who's got the power to disconnect the world from the internet.
Don't tell somebody like me that's the scariest scenario.
Especially when you use Skype.
In this situation, considering we had some technical issues when we started, folks.
The Skype gremlin.
Yes.
So I've got that. I am also writing my autobiography. Which I've just sat here and rambled for almost an hour and 20 minutes. I've got stories to tell, and again, like with what we've been talking here, I've only scratched the surface of some of the stories that I've got to tell, because some, like, I haven't even mentioned the fact that I opened for Ollie Murs.
I did not know that.
When I was a radio DJ, I'll briefly tell you this story, right? So when I was a radio DJ, Ollie Murs came to Dundee to perform at Slessor Gardens, and what he does is that he gets local radio DJs to come and do a DJ set at the beginning of his gig to warm up the crowd before his support act comes on. So I knew that he did this, and he was coming on my show to promote the gig.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than just do it the normal way where they announce the local DJ in the paper or something, and only 10 people show up and that's fine, I decided to take full advantage of it, and I got him to ask me on air to do it. So I manufactured it, and I got him to ask me while we were on air to do it. And the thing is, the radio station I was on was a local Dundee radio station, and I had competition in the other station that was TFM. TFM in Dundee is like the Clyde One to Glasgow.
Right, okay.
Right? It's the big radio station. So as soon as TFM heard that Ollie Murs had asked me to open for them, they were straight on the phone to all these people like, what the hell have you just done?
Siding with the enemy.
So when it came to concert time, I'd hire a kilt. I'd made myself look as good as I could at 25 stone, but still. And normally, what the radio DJs do is they get on the stage and they just mix for an hour and play some music, and that was it. Not a chance am I doing that. You know me, kid.
I know exactly how this should have gone, and I can at least predict it.
You put me on a stage in front of 10,000 people. Do you think I'm just going to stand still and play songs? No. Not a chance. They put a microphone in front of me, and I stood on that stage. I made them all do the YMCA. We sang "Living on a Prayer" together. We did loads of cool stuff. And it was probably one of the best hours in my life, getting to stand in front of 10,000 people and just perform. Because as I said, I'm a performer.
That's your passion.
Yeah, and so I mean that's just one of the stories. As I said, we've no scratched the surface, and that story plus many more are going to be in my autobiography as well. But I want to continue. Like, I want to spend the rest of my life doing what I'm doing now. I want to inspire people. I want to show people that it's okay to have your down days. I want to show people that you can get through it and you can achieve so many good things with your life. And that is my future plans. Lucy's Blue Day is now my life. That is my life now. Every single day I wake up and it's Lucy's Blue Day from the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep. And myself, my wife, and my 3 kids, we are living our best life.
That's excellent.
Because of that book, and because of how that book has changed our life.
One of the things, obviously, I did want to touch upon is, and just while you were while you were talking, was the people that were kind of supporting your life, and it definitely sounds to me that 100% you had a great support base with your family, and more importantly, your wonderful wife stood by you. So
yeah, a million percent, and I can't thank her enough for that. Like she had every reason to leave me. Like, genuinely, like, I wouldn't have blamed her for leaving me. Yeah, do you know that's how bad it was. She had every excuse to. I mean, people thought she was stupid for staying with me. Like, that's how bad it got. And I can't thank her enough. Like, we couldn't do this on our own. Like, even though I'm the face of this whole project, this whole Lucy's Blue Day project, while I'm out visiting schools, Lisa's here in our house. She is managing this business while I'm out doing the kind of facing side of things. She answers the emails, she schedules the school visits, she deals with the orders, all at the same point as having a 2-year-old running about the house, trying to look after her at the same time, while I'm out living the best part of it.
The kudos, the fame, the glory.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you know, I do have this incredible support network, and that's the other thing that I want to teach. I want to teach people as well, is that you cannot do it on your own. You know, if you've got all this pent up emotion and stuff like that, you need to let it out, and you need to talk to somebody about it. Even if it's just a simple thing as just saying, "I don't feel too great just now." Letting that out. It's like, I use an analogy in the schools. As I use the can of Coke analogy, right? So imagine you get a can of Coke. This can of Coke is full of feelings. You open up the can, you pour it out. There's no problem. But what would happen if you took that can of Coke feelings and you made it really angry by shaking it, and you're shaking it really hard? You're going to need to open that can eventually, and what's going to happen?
Explode.
It's going to explode. Exactly. It's going to go everywhere, and it's going to get messy. Same thing if you keep feelings inside. It's going to bubble up inside you, and eventually it's going to explode. It's going to come out, and it's going to get messy. So you cannot do it on your own. You need to use that support network, and you need to, like, even, and again, if you think you don't have a support network, get one. You know, and I spoke about Tony. He was part of my support network. Lisa and I'm not ashamed to admit, we ended up having to get marriage counselling to get through it. But that was a support network. Again, keeping that, it's just a case of the two of us just sitting in a room and talking to somebody about what we were going through helped us. So you cannot keep it inside, no matter what it is, no matter how little. Let it out. So then, there you go. I went away on another tangent there, but there we go.
Once again, there's no. That's absolutely fine. That's what I love. I love to kind of get people's. I love tangents as well. I know it sounds a bit kind of counterproductive in terms of an episode, but hearing what's going on in someone's mind, their thought processes, and how they kind of get to the conclusions they get to, is perfect as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, no, honestly, you'd never need to apologise to me about going off on tangents. I love tangents. Very, very insightful.
Oh, well, good. On that note, do you know what? It's 8:30. I've got an Indian takeaway waiting on me. This is me talking about losing 12.5 stone. And I'm sitting with an Indian takeaway.
I'm sure you're just taking your calorie allotment for the day.
That'll or we'll see. But no, do you know what, Kev? Do you know what, genuinely, it's been amazing chatting, and I just, even the fact, yes, we're recording this conversation, but it's just been nice having a conversation with somebody who like genuinely, it feels like just a catch
definitely.
up.
And one of the things about this as well, Chris, is I've just seen you. I remember the Chris at 16, 17 versus the Chris now, and the Chris now is obviously older, wiser, and you've got you've refined all the best qualities about yourself.
Oh, well, that's very nice to hear.
So, and that's not being some sort of guest shill. That's just saying it like it is, mate. It's fantastic. So, on that note, everybody, this has been Kevin and Chris, the Swiss Army knife of careers, the goat, the good at everything guy.
I'll take it.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Just to say a big thank you again to Chris Duke for his time and to find out his story. If you would like to hear a bit from Chris or any of other of our guests, please check www.anythingbut925.com and then check him out on our affiliates page. If you want to contact ourselves in any other method, or if you think you would be a great guest for the show, feel free to contact us at our email address, which is anythingbut925@gmail.com. Or if you want to contact